Divine understanding, where wisdom meets peace. Tower of Babel.
In Chapter 11 of Genesis, learning what is considered the first skyscraper ever built. This tower designed to reach the heavens so a man could communicate directly with God. But it was more than just a bridge to connect man to his Creator, it was a symbol of unity to determine where each belonged. A kind of center, so to speak, so that each person could find their way back and avoid being scattered across the earth. It would become known as the Tower of Babel. And unfortunately for those who were building a tower, being scattered was exactly what would end up happening. Were the descendants of Noah who lived in the ancient area of Mesopotamia, in Babylon, where they came to settle in a land known as Shinar. The Bible tells us that these men, or rather the entire earth, spoke a single language, understood by all, and that they settled in Shinar after traveling far from the east. The whole land had one language and one speech, and it came to pass that as they traveled east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and dwelt there. But these men who settled in Shinar were not content with just dwelling in those arid lands. Their population was growing, and the people desired to establish a symbol of how great their nation was. And what symbol could be better than a tower reaching the heavens? But obviously the heavens were not meant for man unless God decreed. The Babylonians then decided to act on their own and began to build this tower. They said, "Come, let us make bricks and build ourselves a city and a tower that will touch the heavens." Based on the text alone, it is difficult to see the Babylonians as disobedient to God. God didn't tell them that he couldn't build a tower to visit the heavens, and that didn't even seem to be his main intention. His goal was to build a symbol of pride, a structure that demonstrates his ability to build, his creativity and ingenuity. It was supposed to be a base, a place that the Babylonians could look at to remember where to go and avoid getting lost. The interests of the Babylonians seemed benign, although it is argued that their desire to reach heaven was itself a sin, as it demonstrated pride and arrogance in believing that they could reach heaven without God's permission. Evidently, the Bible agrees with this, because we are told that the Lord went down to see the city and the tower that the sons of men had built. And you said, "Behold, the people are one, and they all have one language, and that is what they have begun to do now. Nothing they try to do will be impossible. Come, let's go down and confuse their language so that they do not understand each other." Here God recognizes that the Babylonians are a united people with a single language. He understands that the people are strongly connected, but that this in turn would end up being an obstacle in the overall plan. He realizes that nothing they dream of will be impossible, remembering that his desire to build a temple to reach the heavens was really possible, and that this would be the first of many constructions that displeased him. Their declaration that nothing they proposed to do would be avoided gives us the idea that God confirms man's ability to overcome any problem, and that man has the ingenuity to build or create anything he desires. It can be said that God does not like man's ambition, which could lead him to become arrogant, perhaps arrogant enough to believe he could ascend to heaven when he wanted. So God imposes on the Babylonians exactly the fate they sought to avoid. He scatters them. The Bible tells us that the Lord kept them there all over the face of the earth, and they stopped building the city, and that is why its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth, and from there the Lord scattered them throughout all the face of the earth. Thus we begin to see that history seeks to explain why the world and all its people speak different languages. As mentioned, it was the united human race, those who came after the great flood who migrated to the west, to the land of Shinar, and that these many people know the same language. To prevent them from completing their mission of building the tower, God confuses the language of the land, making these migrants unable to communicate with each other. Unable to understand each other, the tower is never truly completed and they begin to drift apart. Alienated by their inability to communicate and segregated by the loss of purpose, the Bible then tells us that the tower would come to be known as Babel, which is believed to derive from the Hebrew term Babel, meaning to mix or confuse, that although the exact origin of the term Babel has not been fully confirmed. The construction of the Tower of Babel was motivated by the human desire to reach heaven by their own strength and become powerful. They wanted to make a name for themselves by defying God's order for them to spread across the earth and depend on Him. This attempt to reach the heavens symbolizes human arrogance. Believing that we could be like God, pride and self-sufficiency lead to the fall. Man cannot usurp God's place or achieve spiritual plenitude by his own means. On the other side of history also highlights the power of unity. When people were united and spoke the same language, they were able to work together towards a common goal. Unity in itself is not negative, but the problem was the reason for this union, disobeying God and seeking to magnify themselves. If used for good and under divine guidance, unity can accomplish great things. The multiplicity of languages and dispersion of people reflect God's sovereignty over creation and the diversity He desires for humanity. Although the builder's desire was uniformity, staying in one place, speaking one language, God dispersed them and multiplied languages. This teaches that diversity in humanity, languages, cultures, and peoples is not an error or something to be overcome, but part of God's plan. He values diversity and promotes it as part of His design for the world. The Tower of Babel episode also teaches us that instead of trusting in our own strength and ability, we should seek dependence on God. Human beings were trying to reach heaven and immortality without God's help, which represents a departure from trust in Him. True spiritual ascension and personal fulfillment comes through trust in God, not through human ambition or the building of towers that make us great. The message of the Tower of Babel is profound and timeless. It warns us about the dangers of pride, self-reliance, and disobedience, while highlighting the importance of God's dependence on diversity and right unity. God has control over the course of history, and His plan always prevails, despite human attempts to resist or subvert His designs. History shows that trying to equal God or acting arrogantly, disregarding His plan, leads to negative consequences. This inspires consideration of our limits and the importance of humility. In short, the story invites us to act with humility, respect diversity, and seek divine guidance in our actions. Thanks for watching this far. If you like the video, leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. May God bless your life. Immensely folded hands, light skin tone.